Hey guys, welcome back to World of Warships. Today we're playing Hawaii with the Halsey Confed buff. We took a look at Bremen with the Lucian's buff, and that was pretty insane. But what about Confed buffed Halsey Hawaii? That, as a reminder, is 20% better reload. Not 7.5% like we saw Bremen Lucian's, 20% on maybe an F key Hawaii on the new map, which seems perfectly made for this ship. I've played this map not particularly often yet. Honestly, I want to play it more. But anytime I've played it, especially with these new ships, Hawaii and Bremen, it feels like they were designed hand in hand. It is perfect for this ship. With our F key, we're easily able to arc over some of the tallest islands on this map, as well as have the range to reach out and hit enemies in their spawns. Assuming that they're spotted, of course, Hawaii is perfect here. Now we're also starting off with an arms race game. So imagine Halsey Confed arms race buffs too on Hawaii. It's gonna get insane pretty quickly. Notice this Nova is on the other side of these two rather large islands here. Our F key though is perfectly situated to arc over this. We're already just on base reload here. With F key, it is kind of ridiculous. And this is, I think, a key point in favor of Hawaii and its F key that I didn't really realize quite as much on first impressions. This F key and its lack of shell velocity is actually a really good thing. There are so many islands. I've been able to get so creative over the last couple of weeks of playing Hawaii in the number of positions I can take where I can actually continue to shoot the enemy ships while being completely covered by these large islands. This one's not maybe the largest example, but it's still pretty crazy that within 11 kilometers here, we're able to arc over both these large islands that we usually think are pretty safe when we're playing our cruisers on them. Not so if there is a Hawaii in the game. And of course, we're not getting detected nearly as much. This is a huge point in favor of the reduced range too. Anytime you shoot your guns, your gun blooms out to your maximum gun range. But if our max gun range is only 12.5 kilometers, suddenly we're not actually getting spotted all that much. This allows you to get very creative on the islands that you can use. You can expose a flank to open water. Enemy ships might even be there. But if they're not within 12.5 kilometers of our Hawaii F key, they just won't be spotting us. It is really interesting to play around with this F key. Of course, you want the extra DPM. I'm a little greedy for it, so I'm trying to use it as much as possible. But honestly, non-F keyed Hawaii has been absolutely incredible as well. Shell velocity, the consistency. For the most part, when I'm shooting at destroyers, I'm not going for the extra DPM. I'm going for the extra consistency out of having non-F key shell velocity. It's been really nice. We're already up to 112k damage in this one, and it's pretty easy to play this ship on a map like this one when we have spotting. What I've found, though, is that on more open water maps, yeah, Hawaii's got a ton of HP, but it takes a lot of damage too, right? That is the downside of Hawaii, where it is a large, vulnerable ship. It does not have the best armor. I've hyped that up a lot, especially in my initial video, and in practice, it is still a lot of HP to get through. I think that's what is setting this ship apart. If you're playing Colbert and you make a mistake, you're going to explode in one shot because you have hardly any HP. If you make a mistake in Hawaii, you got a couple of chances to recover from that mistake because you have nearly 80k health. As well as a waterline citadel. It's not fully below water, it's a waterline citadel. It is harder to hit though, compared to something like Colbert. Things like Jinan and Smolensk have smokes, which are excellent for dealing with open water maps and getting into decent positions on maps that don't allow for a lot of cruiser play. However, they still also just have very little HP. I think that is the big advantage here, is not necessarily that we have great armor or anything like that. It's just a lot of HP for the enemy team to get through. And it allows for several mistakes to be made without getting fully taken out of the battle. Now at this point, we got ourselves a high cal. We're starting to play a little more aggressively here. And of course, Confed has to get here sometime. And here we go. Novosibirsk is a super cruiser, by the way, with pretty good armor, I think we can say. A big weakness of Hawaii, right, is we don't pen a lot of cruiser armor. We don't have that 30 mil pen like we're used to seeing on, say, Worcester. A lot of light cruiser guns have 30 millimeters of pen. However, a lot of ships have superstructures that are quite easy to hit at higher tier. Certainly battleships do, but even cruisers do to a certain extent. And at these ranges, of course, it is very easy. Here, we're going to push out flat broadside and not take actually that much damage at all at the DPM. It's got shades of Barbiano, I would say. Once we have the F key as well as Halsey Confed, it's almost non-stop firing, which of course was the gimmick of Barbiano. That ship, though, it's a little harder to make work than Hawaii, and certainly doesn't have healing and doesn't have things like a radar to help it out. But that was a very, very fast melting of that Novo. And we're going to miss a lot of shells on this Lepanto as he starts to accelerate. I'm not the best at aiming these guns just yet, but we're still going to get quite a lot of damage in on him. I played quite aggressive there, poking around that island, going flat broadside. It seems like at range is where this thing gets citadeled more. At closer distances, that waterline citadel becomes a lot harder to hit. But at range, I think, is where we're going to see this one take a little bit more damage. Easily able to arc over so many of these islands is so crazy to me. It's really powerful. However, I am playing a little too aggressively considering the map position here. Yeah, we've lost both flanks on this one, so I'll forgive myself for my poor situational awareness on this occasion. However, I should have been paying a little bit of attention to the battleships. There's like two in this battle, and one of them is remaining. One of them's already taken out, and I still let the other battleship get my flat broadside, and we take a few citadels. So it's possible. It is possible to citadel Hawaii. It's just not as easy as we would see on something like a Colbert or Jidan or Smolensk. With those three ships, if I had been caught like that by the incomp, I would have just died, right? My game would have been over. However, we have more time here to actually farm. A little bit more time, however, as we are quickly going to be losing this one. We're using the improved shell velocity to try and hit this Brisbane, and I find for the most part, unless this target is really close or really stationary, I'm enjoying the better shell velocity for the most part, unless I'm needing to shoot over certain islands. Where we're going to reverse out, and this one is a little bit less excusable. We already got hit by him before. I should know where he is by now, right? Surely? No, I was not paying enough attention. Perhaps I was distracted by the absolutely ridiculous DPM. And yes, that is over 300k in that one. Really, really fun to use Hawaii and get this F key going with Halsey. But also with Hawaii, we can brawl battleships from time to time. Like I said, the armor profile is not as strong as I was initially expecting, right? With Hawaii armor, it sounds crazy, but bigger superstructure. And certainly Hawaii can get overmatched, right? It does not have too much 30 mil armor, 27 mil bow, that kind of thing. A lot of overmatch for those calibers at higher tier here at tier 10. However, assuming we're not getting citadeled that often, let's say we take 10 to 15k damage per battleship salvo. They have 30-second reloads, okay? And the amount of DPM we can pump into them at these close ranges within that 30 seconds, like there was another 8k from those two front guns. It's kind of unfair, I would say, Hawaii getting to brawl like this. Normally, a light cruiser just explodes like this, right? You're normally not able to accomplish this. However, if I have enough HP to just tank that damage, knowing that I'm not going to bounce it, that's okay. I understand that. I know that I have enough HP to tank a few full pen salvos and get around to his side and then just do massive damage with this armor piercing. At closer range, it's going to do absolutely wonderful into these upper belts of battleships. At longer range with F key, it doesn't have the best pen. But I've been surprised, actually, with the non-F keyed AEP. The shell velocity seems to give this 127 mil AP surprisingly good pen. I've been kind of sleeping on it, I guess. When it comes to using this ship, I often am just spamming high explosive out of it. But at longer ranges, even out to 15 kilometers, if you're getting broadsides of ships with weaker upper belts or maybe cruisers, that kind of thing, some light cruisers, they will even citadel out at longer ranges, even with these small destroyer caliber guns with the armor piercing. Now, as we're getting through this quick little brawl, I want you to take a note of the mini-map, okay? Look at my positioning here. Not great, but also really fun, okay? I've found that Hawaii can survive some of these situations on sheer DPM and massive HP alone. And it's not always going to do this well into a brawling situation like this, where we're outnumbered, outflanked. There's a main I gotta watch out for there. It's still really fun, right? I don't have to camp the back, cap spawn, because my team is. I can try to make some of those plays happen. It didn't always work, okay? That was my one good example where it happened to work, and we were really just in their spawn while my team was all in our spawn. It's really fun, though, to have those opportunities. I think that's what it comes down to with Hawaii versus Bremen, right? Talked about this yesterday in the Bremen video. you shouldn't feel bad or discouraged because you got Bremen and don't have Hawaii. But the opposite is also true. If you got Hawaii, don't feel bad that you don't have Bremen. Both of these ships are absolutely incredible. I really stand by what I said. Bremen is more consistent. Hawaii is more unique. This ship has had more interesting, unique, weird, crazy battles than Bremen, but Bremen has just consistently pumped out incredible, consistent battles. Lots of damage, very, very reliable playstyle. Hawaii, though, it's been a little hit and miss, okay? Sometimes you get these crazy games, getting fun brawls, getting Confed, Halsey, wild amounts of damage. And other times, I really didn't accomplish much. Sometimes I go down very early, trying to get into these more aggressive positions. Or sometimes I don't get as much damage, thanks to not getting opportunities to use the F key. Maybe I'm trying to get that too often, I guess. We are a decent long-range farmer, but still, getting the most out of Hawaii, we need to find opportunities to find F key value. Broadside Henry at 11 kilometers, by the way. The AP does really, really nice damage. Assuming you're not in F key, it's easy to hit, as well as the pen is able to actually get through and do some nice damage there. Large, tall island. Well, at that point, we just click F key, and suddenly we're able to arc over it and hit the enemy Hawaii. Hawaii versus Hawaii fights are really funny, I gotta say. We both full pen our gigantic superstructures everywhere with the HE, and it's really down to how many fires we're getting and who has a head start, who has a spawning advantage, right? It is crazy how quickly we can take each other out if we are stuck in a 1v1. So we don't want to play a fair fight, right? He's spotted by our team, and of course we can pump in a ton of damage in this case. But certainly Hawaii has these crazy peak games with this F key activated. It looks absolutely absurd, but you have to know that not every game is looking this consistent. All right, with Bremen, a lot of my games really did look like some of those battles I showed you yesterday. It just happened to pump out a lot of damage very consistently on basically every map. It has plenty of positions that it can play, and most maps and Matchmaker are going to allow you to do so. With Hawaii, to get the most out of it and this F key, it's not every game you're going to get that, and that can be certainly a big downside. I also think a massive downside of this ship is definitely the lack of pen. We managed to make it work in a lot of these games. There's superstructures to hit, but having 38 mil pen on something like Bremen makes it a lot easier to farm down these battleships at range, and Bremen has way better AP into broadsides. I've talked about Hawaii into broadsides a little bit here. Unless you get at really close ranges with F key, Bremen AP is just going to be a better ship overall into those broadsides. Hawaii is more of a gimmicky ship. Hawaii is more of a fun meme ship, where Bremen is really that consistent light cruiser DPM powerhouse in basically every battle. And I like that for both of them. I like that these two are both different enough that they're both worth getting. They're both interesting. Unfortunately, that also means that if you only have steel for one, it really is a difficult choice. And if you forced me to decide on just one, like I said in the Bremen video, it would change day to day. It really would. Some days it's all in on Hawaii. Some days I want that consistent, fun, light cruiser play style of Bremen. The AP there is incredible. The extra power of the torpedoes. But then I miss out on some wild F key shenanigans with Hawaii, right? But if I do have to choose, it's going to be Hawaii, guys, okay? I've said this before, but when it comes to limited resource ships, things that are limited duration, limited time, you can't get both, get the more unique one, okay? That's what I consider to be best practice, okay? For me. It's possible, though, that you're someone who would not enjoy Hawaii's destroyer guns. You would rather have the extra pen. You'd rather have the torps on Bremen, where Hawaii just doesn't have as much normal light cruiser utility in its main guns. The radar here does provide some nice value, certainly, but if you're not used to playing light cruisers with destroyer caliber guns, maybe you'll find this one not so fun. But really, when I'm talking about steel ships, when I'm talking about coal ships, less so. They've kind of forgot about that resource. But research bureau, things that are hard to grind out, event ships, anything like this, dockyards, if you don't have enough time to necessarily grind or dedicate to it. I'm always talking about how unique the ship is. Can you get the playstyle somewhere else? Can you get Hawaii playstyle somewhere else? Not really. I mean, there's some similarity here with light cruisers like Jinan. Smolensk is harder to get. Colbert, for example. But those ships do explode, right? That's why I wanted to talk about that earlier on in the video, right? This ship has the massive HP pool to make some mistakes, to sit in front of a Shikishima, even though we should not be just sitting here, and eat a salvo, and know that I'm probably not going to get dev-struck. I wouldn't be able to do this, right? I would be way too slow accelerating or something like that. I wouldn't be able to do this in a Jinan or in a Colbert, for example, unless you're really, really good at dodging in those. I find myself to be a little inconsistent on doing that. Finally, we get our Confed again. Yeah, another Confed game. It's really fun, what can I say? But it's a little hard to find a similar ship like Hawaii in the current roster that we have. Maybe we have Austin, right? Maybe that reload booster feels similar, but that's a very limited time thing. It's more of a hit and run style ship, right? This one is just get into a good spot and just consistently pump out the DPM. So it's hard to find a close approximation to Hawaii, where with Bremen, there's a lot of light cruisers, heavy cruisers that have similar range, similar but lower DPM, but maybe they have more pen. Things like Hindenburg play very similarly. Maybe not the absolute peaks of Bremen in Hindenburg, but also more consistency against some of the harder ships to deal with. We talked about that yesterday. So Bremen being a slightly more similar ship to what we already have playstyle-wise, I think for me, would push it over the edge to just get Hawaii. If I had to choose, okay? Like I said, I don't want to choose, and I am lucky enough that I can have both of these ships. But if I did have to choose just one, I do think it would be Hawaii, even though I love Bremen, and I think that ship is amazing. And if you have Bremen, again, you should not feel bad about getting that ship because it is absolutely wonderful. But I value the unique playstyles, okay? Maybe that is down to me playing this game for over 10 years now. I've played this game a lot, guys. And when I'm looking for ships to play, I'm looking for fun, unique experiences, new experiences, ships that are different from the standard playstyle that I've had before. The standard playstyle, don't get me wrong, is very, very fun still. I love to take out my Montana, okay? But if I'm getting a limited time, limited resource ship and it plays a lot like a Montana, it's probably a little bit less interesting than something that offers a unique playstyle. But that, of course, is just my opinion. Let me know in the comments what you think if you had to just pick one. Maybe you did have to just pick one. Let me know which one you ended up with. And feel good about either one, honestly, because they're both incredible. Ohio on 40k HP. We're on 30. We're going to DPM him down, though. I'm confident enough. Although, Ohio has pretty good main guns. He's angling into us, so let's put the HE up into his superstructure. F-keyed, full Confed buff. Yeah, we're getting some ridiculous damage here. Even though it's small bits at a time, it is very powerful. And then if he opens up to give us the angle, look at the damage into his bow. It's unsaturated. And then we should go to upper belt, probably. And nearly get one shot. See? It can take massive hits. Maybe it'd be a little more fair if Hawaii had a much easier to hit Citadel. So that it can't just YOLO rush into some of these battleships. I don't know. It's really crazy, though. Both are really fun. Seriously, let me know in the comments which ones you're liking better, which one you got, and maybe that could help people decide as well. But it's a really tough choice, and both ships are great, honestly. Both ships are really, really good. And as for the build on this ship, I have kind of settled towards getting most of the DPM upgrades on it. I would love to have run things like Outnumbered. I know it may not seem that valuable on a ship that has so many guns, up to 18 firing all at once. But getting some accuracy buffs and getting every shell to land on those superstructures is actually pretty incredible. However, running full conceal build is so nice, okay? Like I said, I've been trying to get this ship in F-key range. That is my goal when I play this ship. I'm trying to push up to islands. I'm trying to get F-key going, and that's where I found I've had the most fun playing it. Not the most consistent playing it, but the most fun playing it, okay? I'm trying to get that gimmick going. And so, yeah, we have the extra range to maybe not take full conceal, right? That difference between our detection and our max firing range, often how comfortable a ship feels. I kind of think about that as the difference between these two. But the extra conceal lets me get closer and into some of those more aggressive island positions early and proc this F key a little bit more, get to use it a little bit more. Of course, we're taking Superintendent, got a lot of HP, so getting that extra heal up to 4 heals is nice. The extra radars, and I'm using D-Fire here, we'll talk about that in a second, is also kind of nice, but not as important as the healing, in my opinion. It's only an 8.5 kilometer radar, which is very good still. Okay, I'm surprised they even put a radar on this ship, but it's no 10 kilometer radar like Des Moines or even 9 kilometers, right? Like Worcester. We're we're known as we get spotted at 12.2, so for a DD to be within 8.5 of us, it's got to be a pretty aggressive island or pretty late game or someone who's not aware that we have that radar range. We're using heavy HE and sap shells because it's free damage, right? It's free 10% extra damage on our AP, or our HE, sorry. It doesn't affect the AP at all. Don't even know what I'm saying. Okay. It's an extra damage buff, and we don't have to worry about the downside here because our gun caliber is so small, right? We don't have that concealment penalty. Also taking Demo Expert because we already have good fire chance. Every once in a while I get trolled on your fire RNG, and trying to guarantee some of those fires in is really, really nice. The extra duration in the radar sounds good, but in practice, 8.5 kilometer range radar, if you're not finishing off the enemy ship within 40 seconds, I don't know what's happening, okay? This ship should nuke any destroyer within that time, or the DD gets out of range, so then your extra duration doesn't matter anyway. That's the thought process there, why I don't feel like I need the extra duration. I do want the consumable cooldown, though. It's nice to get back to those a little sooner. And also, one-pointer skills, none of these are really that impactful for Hawaii. Our turret traverse is already insane. Our swap times are already very fast. Incoming fire alert, I guess I kind of just had an extra point that I threw it in there. As for the equipment here, yes, okay, defensive AA. I wanted to see if I could get a game where a carrier would just focus me and I could show off the theoretically insane AA, where we have 11 flak, right? If you don't know, the way you're shooting down planes in this game is flak. You need to get lucky with flak bursts. That's the real bursty damage where you're actually dealing enough damage to shoot planes down. Continuous damage, right? Think about it, okay? Think about it for a second. If Wargaming has designed a system that the player has no control over, why then would they design that automated system to completely counter carriers which are player controlled, the planes that are player controlled, right? It doesn't make sense, right? So continuous, in my opinion, doesn't really matter as much. It's all about getting lucky with flak bursts. We have 11 of those, and with D-Fire, that's going to do a lot of extra damage. So that was my thought, as well as playing aggressive on islands. Well, you're probably singling yourself. This isn't like a, oh, CPQ, shoot PQ thing, okay? This is literally just a, I'm playing aggressive, I'm playing farther forward than my teammates. It makes sense that you would shoot at a ship that's closer to you, right? That's all I'm saying. So trying to have a little extra protection there. Didn't work out, although maybe it did, right? Sometimes it's better to run that AA build and then just not have the carrier go after you. Because that's the goal at the end of the day anyway, right? We don't want to have to deal with that. Here is our 36mm deck armor, and this superstructure basically covers all of it. So it's not really that impactful as far as armor plating goes. You can see at these closer ranges here, 406s and above are all overmatching us everywhere here. And yeah, we do have some decent belt armor here that sometimes can bounce stuff, but a lot of the time you're taking 10 to 15k if you're not taking a Citadel, and then maybe upwards of 30k if you do take a Citadel. It is waterline, a little hard to hit at those closer ranges, but I think the Ohio managed it. That was a pretty big salvo there in that last game, and certainly broadside onto that in comp once, okay, fair enough, but twice, I can't believe I wasn't paying enough attention to that. Although given the map position and how the enemy team won both sides, maybe I shouldn't be so hard on myself there. Armor-wise, not great, like I said, but it's really all about the HP pool letting you tank, not that you're bouncing shells, anything like that. The fact that you have over double the HP of a lot of these light cruisers with similar guns and similar playstyles is what makes this ship so comfortable to play. Maybe, though, it also makes this ship a little bit less satisfying to play if you are good enough in things like Colbert to do closer range dodging, that kind of thing. If you're good enough to avoid the damage in ships like Colbert, then maybe a ship that can't avoid the damage isn't actually all that helpful for you. I think that's what I've been watching John the Ruthless a little bit play this, because I was curious, right? That guy's insane in Colbert. I wanted to see it, and I think that's kind of how he feels about Hawaii. I don't know. Maybe he'll do a video. John, if you're watching this, sometimes you should make YouTube videos. I think people would enjoy them. Anyways, that is going to do it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. A little bit of fun shenanigans in Hawaii Halsey Confed. Very, very fun. Very, very good ship. But so is Bremen. They are both amazing. They are both really fun. And I don't think you should feel bad at all. Either one you got, I think you made the right choice, and you're going to have a really good time, no matter which one you did get. Unfortunate that we have to choose, though, sometimes. Unfortunate, but that's how it goes sometimes. And that is going to do it for today's video. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.